Good evening. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani addressing the United Nations General Assembly. You're watching Gravitas and we're going straight to it.
And created the Iranian cultural continent with a unique mix of diverse religions and ethnicities. I represent the same Iran that has historically assisted the oppressed. Centuries ago, we supported the rights of the Jewish people, and today we insist on the restoration of the rights of the Palestinian people. Iran is still the same country, supporting justice and seeking tranquility. Today, we are on the front lines of fighting terror and religious extremism in the Middle East. Not for sectarian or ethnic reasons, but for an ethical, humanitarian, and strategic one. Iran does not seek to restore its ancient empire, impose its official religion on others, or export its revolution through the force of arms. We are so confident in the depth of our culture, the truth of our faith, and tenacity and longevity of our revolution that we will never seek to export any of them in the way neo-colonialists do with the heavy boots of soldiers. To promote our culture, civilization, religion, and revolution, we enter hearts and engage minds. We recite our poetry and engage in discourse on our philosophy. Our ambassadors are our poets, our mystics, and our philosophers. We have reached the shores of this side of the Atlantic through Rumi, and spread our influence throughout Asia with Sadi. We have already captured the world with Hafiz. We therefore are in no need of new conquests. Excellencies, the call of moderation is from a nation that has been committed to it. We are not preaching moderation, but we are practicing it. The JCPOA is a case in point. The deal is the outcome of 2 years of intensive multilateral negotiations, overwhelmingly applauded by the international community and endorsed by the Security Council as a part of Resolution 2231. As such, it belongs to the international community in its entirety, and not only to one or two countries. The JCPOA can become a new model for global interactions. Interactions based on mutual constructive engagement between all of us. We have opened our doors to engagement and cooperation. We have concluded scores of development agreements with advanced countries of both East and West. Unfortunately, some deprived themselves of this unique opportunity. They have imposed sanctions really against themselves, and now they feel betrayed. We were not deceived, nor did we cheat or deceive anyone. We have ourselves determined the extent of our nuclear program. We never sought to achieve deterrence through nuclear weapons. We have immunized ourselves through our knowledge and, more importantly, the resilience of our people. This is our talent and our approach. Some have claimed to have wanted to deprive Iran of nuclear weapons. weapons that we have continuously and vociferously rejected. And of course, we were not and are not distressed for foregoing an option that we in fact never sought. It is reprehensible that the rogue Zionist regime that threatens regional and global security with its nuclear arsenal and is not committed to any international instrument or safeguard has the audacity to preach peaceful nations. Ladies and gentlemen, just imagine for a moment how the Middle East would look had the JCPOA not been concluded. Imagine that along with civil wars, Takfiri terror, humanitarian nightmares, and complex socio-political crises in West Asia, that there was a manufactured nuclear crisis. How would we all fare? I declare before you that the Islamic Republic of Iran will not be the first country to violate the agreement, but it will respond decisively and resolutely to its violation by any party. It will be a great pity if this agreement were to be destroyed by rogue newcomers to the world of politics. The world will have lost a great opportunity. But such unfortunate behavior will never impede Iran's course of progress and advancement. By violating its international commitments, the new U.S. administration only destroys its own credibility and undermines international confidence in negotiating with it or accepting its word or promise. Ladies and gentlemen, 4 years ago, the Islamic Republic of Iran sponsored the initiative of the World Against Violence and Extremism, WAVE, in this assembly. We consider dialogue and negotiations based on a positive-sum paradigm as the only path towards the resolution of global and regional crises. We have made a conscious decision to strengthen relations with our neighbors and the region and to enhance cooperation with all friendly countries. It is impossible to navigate through the complex and dangerous challenges in this turbulent transitional global phase without expanding interactions and exchanges and institutionalizing dialogue between nations and states. The ignorant, absurd, and hateful rhetoric filled with ridiculously baseless allegations that was uttered before this august body yesterday was not only unfit to be heard at the United Nations, which was established to promote peace and respect between nations, but indeed contradicted the demands of our nations from this world body to bring governments together to combat war and terror. I wish to underscore here that the defense capabilities of the Islamic Republic of Iran, including our missiles, are solely defensive deterrents for the maintenance of regional peace and stability, and the prevention of adventurous tendencies of irrational aspirants. We cannot forget that civilians in many of our cities became the targets of long-range missile attacks by Saddam Hussein during his 8-year war of aggression against us. We will never allow our people to become victims of such catastrophic delusions again. Instability and extremist violence have only been exacerbated in our region through the military interventions of extra-regional actors. The same powers that try to sell ever more of their deadly weapons to other states by accusing Iran of fomenting instability. I want to emphasize that foreign intervention and the imposition of alien wishes on the people of the region will only widen and deepen the crises in our region. The crises in Syria, Yemen, and Bahrain do not have military solutions and can only be resolved through cessation of hostilities and the acceptance of the will and wishes of the populaces. The United States government should explain to its own people why, after spending billions of dollars of the assets of the people of America and of our region, instead of contributing to peace and stability, it has only brought war, misery, poverty, and the rise of terrorism and extremism to the region. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 4 years, Iran's economy demonstrated that it has unparalleled potential for expansion and growth. Economic sanctions not only did not impede Iran, but instead solidified popular resolve to enhance domestic production. Achieving the highest global growth rate last year proved that Iranian economy can become the most vibrant emerging economy within the next 20 years with $1 trillion growth potential. Our strategic choice for achieving such sustainable and balanced growth is extensive global partnership. We are of the firm belief that development and security can only grow together, and common interests can bind us regionally and globally to guarantee both regional and global security. Iran, enjoying the world's largest gas and oil reserves, is prepared to engage in long-term cooperation to advance global energy security. We are eager to expand international transit corridors through joint ventures in sea, rail, and road infrastructure projects. Our achievements in enhancing economic infrastructures in the fields of a nationwide gas pipe.
Iranian President Hassan Rouhani there making a very strong speech at the United Nations General Assembly. Forget North Korea for a moment. Donald Trump's broadsides against Iran suggest that he is determined to put that country back on America's armed and dangerous list. Listen into what he said yesterday.
The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. Frankly, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States, and I don't think you've heard the last of it, believe me. It is time for the entire world to join us in demanding that Iran's government end its pursuit of death and destruction. It is time for the regime to free all Americans and citizens of other nations that they have unjustly detained. And above all, Iran's government must stop supporting terrorists, begin serving its own people, and respect the sovereign rights of its neighbors.
Well, this could happen as early as next month when he has to certify to Congress that Iran is abiding by its obligations that were set out in a treaty signed in 2015. Apart from the P5, Germany and France were also signatories to that agreement. None of them have found anything wrong with Iran's conduct. Even the United Nations has given it a clean chit. But Trump is evidently playing to a different drum regardless of the consequences. A point underscored by French President Emmanuel Macron on the same stage.
Mais je lui ai demandé quelle était la position de substitution qui était la sienne. Je ne l'ai pas comprise. Et donc, dans ce contexte-là, j'ai indiqué que pour ma part, si il y avait une anxiété sur l'Iran de sa part, et je pense que nous devons travailler tous ensemble sur ce sujet, je souhaite que nous puissions maintenir l'accord de 2015 dans les termes qui sont les siens et continuer à regarder sa bonne application. Et évidemment, s'il n'est pas respecté, procéder aux sanctions prévues par le dit accord. Ce qui n'est pas le cas aujourd'hui. Parce que si nous faisons tomber cet accord, il est remplacé par rien. Et le rien, nous l'avons testé, c'est la situation de la Corée du Nord.
Iran's President Hassan Rouhani, who is speaking at the United Nations General Assembly, also warned Trump against any precipitate action. Earlier today, he said, and I quote, "No one would trust America again, and there is no higher price to pay than this. Which country would be willing to sit across the table from the United States of America and talk about international issues?" Trump's ignorant hate speech belongs to medieval times, not the 21st century United Nations, unworthy of a reply. But Trump is being egged on by Israel, which sees Iran as a deadly enemy.
That's why Israel's policy regarding the nuclear deal with Iran is very simple. Change it or cancel it. Fix it or nix it. Nixing the deal means restoring massive pressure on Iran, including crippling sanctions, until Iran fully dismantles its nuclear weapons capability.
Trump's anti-Iran tirade reflects the view of the Republican Party and America's deep state, which has never got over the Islamic Revolution of 1978 that led to the overthrow of the late Shah and the detention of scores of American diplomats. It also reflects American frustration over the manner in which Iran has moved into Iraq and Syria, the role of its Revolutionary Guards and various proxies. Doubtless, Russia and China will oppose any move to cancel the deal or impose fresh sanctions on Iran. They're also likely to dilute the effect of whatever new sanctions the US may impose, but an angry Iran could well decide to broaden the front against the United States, Syria and Iraq today, Afghanistan tomorrow perhaps. And that is what the world is looking at. Joining me, my senior colleague Surya Gangadharan from the newsroom. Surya, some very tough words from Rouhani himself, saying he will respond with determination and force to any violation by any party to the nuclear agreement.
Absolutely. I think frankly, Rouhani is in a bit of a bind here. He not only has to save the nuclear deal, he has to save himself. Because if this nuclear deal is torpedoed by Trump next month, and it seems that Trump is well on the way to doing that, it means Rouhani's political future back in Iran is in peril. The hardliners will come back, his neck is up, and that's the real problem for Rouhani right now. How does he salvage the nuclear deal? How does he salvage his political program? And how does he save himself?
It seems from the kind of statements that we've heard from Macron to Trump, he's called Trump a rogue newcomer without really naming him, but Trump was the person he was referring to. This has become a stage not for diplomatics, but for more bluster.
I think there's going to be a lot of hard bargaining going on behind the scenes. If I'm not mistaken, the US Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, is meeting the Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif later today. So I would presume there'll be some hard bargaining going on, some hard discussions and negotiations. Very likely, if things go properly, if there is some give and take on both sides, you could well see Trump certifying next month that the deal is on course. But with a lot of perhaps fresh conditionalities attached to Iran. Is Iran willing to accept that? That's another big question mark, because I'm afraid it would appear that Rouhani may not be willing to go that far. Don't forget, he has a bunch of hardliners back there in Tehran who may not be willing to go along with any further sanctions that the US prepares to impose.
A word on the role of Israel here, and Rouhani had some words to say for that country as well.
No, factually, in fact, he was correct, because Iran may not have nuclear weapons now, and they may not have any plans to acquire nuclear weapons immediately. But Israel has had them for many years. They haven't acknowledged they've had them, but everybody in the region and the world knows that Israel has nuclear weapons. It's a bomb in the basement kind of thing, and they've not declared anything. They've kept that ambiguity alive, and they've used it as leverage to strengthen their own position in that part of the world.
How do you see it playing out going forward? Because we're still waiting for some other world leaders to speak at the United Nations, and this is going to be an interesting session if there was one.
I recall a former Indian ambassador to Iran who later became vice president, Mr. Hamid Ansari, saying that the Iranians are like carpet dealers. You know, you have to keep on negotiating with them. You need a lot of patience. Whether Trump has that kind of patience, whether his administration has the kind of patience, we don't know. But clearly there's going to be a lot of hard bargaining ahead. Unfortunately, the American deep state, the US State Department, they are implacably opposed to Iran. So you could well see further conditionalities being imposed on Iran. Whether the Iranians will bite and accept is a different matter altogether.
And what is your sense? Donald Trump has made some tough statements in the past, but he hasn't really scrapped the deal. Do you think that he's making a case for doing it or just posturing?
I think Trump is under pressure from the deep state. You saw it on Russia. We are seeing it on Iran. And if you recall, during his election campaign, Trump had made some very, very positive noises about Iran and about Russia. So clearly now he's on the defensive. He has to protect his own presidency from going under. The deep state is on the offensive. In that sense, Trump is echoing what they want. Whether he really believes it or not, I don't think Trump would want to go this far with Iran, but perhaps in a sense he's being pushed into it. So he would, we can see some noise and fireworks, yes. Maybe there'll be some common sense also at play here, and perhaps the US will tone down its demands and settle for a deal with Iran, which is well short of cancelling the nuclear deal.
Right. Interesting times in international affairs, of course. Surya, thanks very much for joining us with your understanding of what's going on at the United Nations.